In our ongoing Sunday Adult Forum series, we're taking a look at the heart of things by using our older brother in the faith, Martin Luther's Small Catechism, a collection of essential points of the Christian faith and practice that Martin Luther helped to identify coming out of the scriptures and early Christian tradition. We started taking a look at the commandments, and as we began over these last several weeks, we've noticed how Luther helps us to see all of the commandments are really about how to love and trust and fear, to respect, to be in awe of God. So that even the things that don't look religious, even the commandments that aren't really aimed at God, so to speak, they're not vertical the way we sometimes picture God being up, but are about our horizontal relationships with each other, those are really still ways of loving and trusting God. So as we turned to take a look at the fourth commandment, honor your father and your mother, Luther sees that also as a way of loving God, that to care for the people in our lives, in particular our parents whose job is to form us and care for us in our childhood, and then when the tables are turned and it's our turn to care for them, that's a way of loving God. This begins a really important idea, not just for Luther, but I think this is fair to say of Jesus and of Judaism's understanding of how to love God and neighbor, that these are not really separate things, but in a very real sense, the way I love my neighbor becomes the way I love God. The way I love and care for parents or the person who lives down the street or the person who is in need, these are the ways that we love God. So similarly, Luther says that this commandment is we are to fear and love God so that we neither despise nor anger our parents or others in authority, but instead honor, serve, obey, love, and respect them. Now, a couple of things you'll notice there. One is what we call the Lutheran twist, the idea that it's not just avoid this bad thing, but instead do this good thing, right? So I shouldn't despise or disrespect parents, but instead I should honor and respect and care for them. We're going to see again and again Luther make that same move, that to rightly keep the commandments isn't just avoid this bad thing and you can get through your day as long as you don't touch anybody or do anything or say anything, you're fine, but more we're actively called to care for, love, show respect for people around us. And then the other thing Luther notes is he makes a connection between our parents and other kinds of authority around us. And there's something important about recognizing whether it is your local government authority or your school board or the people who determine speed limits or decide to put a roundabout instead of a stoplight in your town. All of those kinds of authority are meant for the common good and are worth us supporting, even without pretending they're always infallible, any more than you pretend your parents are infallible, right? Yeah, many times in childhood, adults, the parents, know more than we do. We don't only show care, respect, or honor for our parents only if they turn out to be perfect, but because broadly speaking, they're one means, one channel through whom God cares for us, and their work is to help take care of everybody in the household. And similarly, other kinds of authorities are there for the common good, for the sake of taking care of everybody in the common community, and that's worth upholding. So while Luther doesn't exactly get into things like not speeding in a school zone, the idea is, if I'm driving along and I see there's a school zone and I've got to go 20 miles an hour instead of 35 or whatever, you know what? I might not think that it's dangerous to drive at 35. I might not see any school kids here, but I'm willing to recognize other people whose job is to care for children, to care for the vulnerable, have decided this is a place to go slow, so I will. There's something like that in Luther's understanding of this commandment, that authorities are worth supporting because their job, when they do their job well, is to care for the common good. So respecting and honoring what the authorities say about, say, for example, stopping at a stop sign or driving 20 miles per hour in a school zone is a way of loving my neighbor. And because when chaos rules, that's not good for the neighbor. So having some kind of semblance of order and the common good, that's worth supporting. So in other words, it's a way of loving my neighbor, which is a way of loving God. Now, are there times when it is appropriate for us to disobey what parents might say or authorities might say? Sure. There are times in the Bible where people disobey, and that's the right thing to do. There's times where Jesus calls people to leave behind their parents or their family so they can follow him. There's times where the prophet Elisha is told, leave your family behind and come and be a prophet with the prophet Elijah. There are times where the followers of Jesus are convinced they have to obey God rather than what the human civil authorities or even religious authorities are telling them to do at the moment. Yes, there are times when we are called to say no to what the authorities are telling us to do. The book of Acts is constantly the disciples of Jesus getting into trouble in one town or place or another because they are seen as troublemakers who are not obeying the authorities. So yeah, there's a place for that. But it's also worth recognizing that just refusing to do anything that supports the common good, that's not really loving neighbor either. If the authorities are telling me to do something that violates the character of God or the commandments of God, then yeah, I will disobey them. But if they're telling me to do things that are helpful for taking care of one another, that's appropriate. And when it's things like, stop signs and school zones, that's a helpful way to love our neighbor. The second thing we took a look at this past week was the next commandment, you shall not murder, which seems pretty straightforward and pretty easy, right? I'm guessing you can get through the day without killing anybody. However, Luther does that same move he always does, where he says, this commandment means we are to love and fear God so that we neither endanger nor harm the lives of our neighbors, but instead help and support them in all of life's needs. It's that Lutheran twist again, right? Not just avoid murdering people, but actively, I'm not supposed to harm or endanger my neighbors. Ooh, that's even harder. And then on top of that, I'm actively supposed to help to protect, preserve, and support my neighbor in all of life's needs. It gets us to that story Jesus tells called the Good Samaritan, right? Where there's this man who's beaten up and left for dead by the side of the road, and along come two religious leaders, the priest and the Levite, and they walk right on by, and they could tell themselves, I suppose, well, I didn't hurt him, so therefore I haven't sinned. And the point of that story, when a foreigner comes along and who understands this guy's going to die if I don't help, he understands that keeping God's commandment is more important in the sense of actively helping to take care of this person rather than thinking I can walk right on by because I didn't hurt him, therefore I don't have responsibility for him. This becomes a challenge living out in real life, right? Because maybe you're not likely to find somebody laying by the side of the road where things are that obvious or clear, and maybe there are realistic reasons to be fearful or nervous, right? If there's somebody by the side of the road and that looks like their car is stalled out, is it really someone who's in need? Is it trick? Is it a scheme? Is it someone who's trying to bait you so that they can? There's lots of reasons you might be nervous about helping somebody in need, and maybe we've been given lots of reasons to be suspicious of people around us. There's times when someone is asking for help by the side of the road, or they're asking for a donation and they come to your door. What do you do, right? Nobody's suggesting that we don't have to give intelligent thought to how we act and how we help other people. And just throwing money at people thinking I've absolved myself of any responsibility isn't a solution either. So it's more complicated, it's more nuanced, and does require thinking, what things can I do that would actually help the neighbor around me rather than just throwing money at them so they go away, or turning my head so I don't have to think about them. But doing that work, that's important work to do, and that's what we're called to do as followers of Jesus. So that's where we went this past week in our series on the Catechism, and we're going to invite you to join us coming up this Sunday as we continue to get to the heart of things. See you along the way.